Let's check out this PRS 408. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Guitar Gear Trader channel. I'm Steve, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. As always, if you do me a favor before we get into the show, if you would do me a big one and hit the subscribe button and hit the bell down below, it really is going to help me get my content out there to everybody. The numbers are going up. It's looking good. So let's keep that momentum going. And if you like the channel and you like all the content, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, leave a comment. That's a big deal. Interact with me. Follow me on Instagram at Guitar Gear Trader, and thanks again for watching. So today we have a update on my previous video where I traded a PRS Ted McCarty. I think it was a 2011 PRS Ted McCarty for this PRS 408. This gorgeous PRS 408, and I want to talk a little bit about this model. I want to talk a little bit about PRS in general. I want to talk to you a little bit about how the trade went down, and I want to talk about the people who collect these beautiful instruments. So if you watched the previous video, that's great. If you haven't watched it, I will link it at the end of this video, so make sure you wait till the end to click on that video. But last week or 2 weeks ago, I was lucky enough to get my hands on a Gibson R9 from the Gibson demo shop for a very good price. And I did a whole video on how I got that guitar and how I had some kind of conflict with one of the PRSs that I have. Now, I only have one PRS in my collection, and not sure why that is, and we'll talk about how good these guitars are and how kind of underrated they are, I think. But I only had one PRS in my collection, and it was a 2011 Ted McCarty. It was actually this guitar, and it was a beautiful guitar that sounded and played amazing. But the only issue was I am a bit of a collector, and I know a lot of collectors might have a similar feeling. If I had all the money in the world, I wouldn't trade or get rid of any guitar that I ever owned. But this particular PRS happened to look and play and feel very similar to that Gibson R9, which I absolutely love right now. It's my go-to guitar at this moment. So I know I might still be in the honeymoon phase of it, but it really is an amazing guitar, amazing piece of art. But this guitar, this PRS, I didn't want to have such a similar guitar to the R9. And again, that's strictly from a collector's point of view. I do play in a little band that I'm trying to get together, a little cover band. I played a lot years ago when I was living in New York. I was in a cover band that played every weekend for 6-7 years. Trying to get back into that, but the collector part of me wants to have a diverse collection of guitars. And like I said, if I had all the money in the world, I would have kept this and bought a different PRS or whatever, but I don't, right? And all of this stuff that I have, I'm lucky and I'm grateful to have it because I work hard for it so that I can enjoy it. So I didn't want to have two guitars that were so similar in color and in body shape and in sound and feel. So basically, I went on Facebook and I went on Craigslist and I went on Reverb and did all my normal things, and I specifically wanted a PRS. I didn't want to not have a PRS in the collection. So I figured if I can get one that's a different color, or if I can get one that's maybe a different body shape instead of the single cut, maybe I can get one of the double cuts like the Custom 22s or the Custom 24s. I don't know a terrible amount about PRSs like I do with Fenders and Gibsons and Gretsches and Rickenbackers. Basically, I know that there's this body shape, and I know that there's an SC body shape, or a single cut body shape that looks like a Les Paul. This is more looks like a Strat, and the other body shape looks more like a Les Paul. I know that the Custom 22 has 22 frets. I know that the Custom 24 has got 24 frets. I know that 10 tops have these really nice flame maple tops on them. But besides that, I don't know much about the pickups. I don't know much about the radiuses and all that kind of stuff that go along with those models. All I know is I have never in my life picked up and played a core model PRS that I disliked. I know that for a fact. I haven't played as many of them as I've played Gibsons and stuff like that. So through the years, I kind of regret getting rid of every PRS I've ever had, to be honest with you. My first PRS I ever had was a core model Mira. Now, they still make the Mira now, but this was like the first year the Mira came out, and it was very affordable. And they made a maple capped Mira that I think was in the core collection. If it wasn't in the core collection, it was one of those SEs or CEs. I'm not sure which one it was, but I'm pretty sure it was a core model because it wasn't cheap, and it was gorgeous. It looked like a double cut Les Paul essentially, with a really beautiful flame maple top. I have pictures of it somewhere. I'd have to go find them. And I regret selling that guitar because of how well it played. The reason I sold that guitar was because I upgraded my PRS to a Tremonti Signature model, which was charcoal gray with a black border. And that's probably the best guitar I've ever played. And I regret selling that like you have no idea. I'm going to do a whole video on guitars that I regret selling. Some of them I regret selling more than others, but that is the one that got away from me. And the first thing I did when I wanted to trade this Ted McCarty model was I was going to go try and find someone who was selling a Mark Tremonti Signature and see if they would trade with me. I knew it was a long shot because they're very similar guitars. The shapes are very similar, just the colors are different really. The Mark Tremontis usually come in like a charcoal gray and black, or maybe like a bluish color. I think maybe they came in flat black at one point, but I gave it my best shot, and I couldn't find anyone with a Tremonti that was selling a Tremonti to trade with me. But I did come across a gentleman selling this guitar. And again, I don't know much about PRS models. So when I saw this body shape and I saw the 10 top and I saw the price he was asking for $3,700 for this guitar. And I had to go do some research because I contacted another person who was selling a PRS Studio. Now, in my head, the Studio name kind of goes back to like Gibson Les Paul Studios, which are like the bottom of the lineup. So when I saw a PRS Studio, I kind of assumed that it was the bottom of the lineup. Then I was shocked to see that they are like almost $6,000 guitars, and they're the ones with 3 pickups, and each pickup is different than one another, and they're real fancy and really expensive. And there was a guy online selling his for like $4,800, and I offered to trade him the Ted McCarty, and he wanted like $1,500 cash on top of the guitar. I didn't want to get into that. So this guy, I thought this guy was more in my price range. He wanted $3,400. I valued my McCarty at around $3,000 to $3,400. They haven't made them in a while, and everyone loves those guitars. Everyone who's ever played those guitars absolutely loves those. And if you're a PRS player, you most likely know what that guitar is. I had to do a lot of research on that guitar before I traded for it. But I figured maybe we can get a deal done. So I contacted the gentleman, and he was like, you're the first person that's trade offer wasn't an insult to me, and I would be interested in trading you. So I go down to meet up with him, and we do the trade. And he didn't look very happy when he left, and I didn't know why. He was from Atlanta, I'm from Nashville. We drove 2.5 hours in different directions to meet each other. And when we finally got there, I was tired. I was with my brother. I dragged him along for the ride, and I just wanted to get the guitar, do the trade if we were all cool with it, and then go get something to eat, maybe hit up a record store, and then head back home to Nashville. But I noticed he looked a little downtrodden when he left, and I was like, well, I think maybe he just wanted to talk to me more about guitars and stuff, and because a lot of times I'll rush people and just try to get the deal done, just because maybe I'm not the best conversationalist sometimes. But he texted me while we were at the record store after we ate and stuff and said, you know, you were really misleading about this guitar, and it's not in excellent shape. It's not near mint, and you know, I'm really upset about it, and I just wanted to let you know. And I was like, oh man, I felt terrible, because that's not what I want to do. I never want anyone to trade with me and be unhappy with the trade, or feel like I ripped them off, or that I manipulated them or lied to them about anything. I will never, ever leave something out if something's wrong with the guitar. I'll always be upfront and tell people what's wrong with the guitar if there's anything. But I honestly thought that this guitar was like new. I looked it over. I didn't see any dings or dents or scratches on it that were of any concern. And he sent me pictures of things that were really tiny. And that brings me to my next point about the kind of collector that collects PRS guitars. I think a PRS collector and a collector who collects Gibsons and Fenders and things like that, I think they treat their guitars differently. And it's really interesting. There's another guy, I don't know his channel, but if you type in guitar collections on YouTube, there's an Indian guy who goes through his whole collection, and most of his collection is PRSs, and they're gorgeous PRSs, and they're all in mint condition. He treats them like museum pieces. It's a really interesting channel. I'm shocked I can't remember the name right now. But have you ever seen a PRS that's like beat up and road worn? I never do. I'm sure they're out there. So there's somebody out there listening that's like, yeah, oh yeah, I've seen them. Listen, you go on Facebook, you go on Reverb, you go on Craigslist, you never see a PRS with, you know, wear marks in the finish. You never see it, you know, with you know, the paint chipping and peeling off in one area where arms are sitting all the time. You don't see a lot of fret wear on the fretboard and stuff like that. You just don't see that for PRSs. And I wonder why that is. Is it because the people who collect these things and play these things kind of cherish them a little bit more than, say, a person who is playing a Les Paul or a Tele or a Strat or something like that? Are they harder on those guitars? Because my R9, it's a beautiful guitar. It's really, really pretty. And I don't want to, you know, if I put dings and dents in it, I'm okay. It's fine. It'll be fine. I don't mind that. But I don't want to put dings and dents in this. Look how pretty this thing is. This is one of the most beautiful guitars I own. And I think people that own these and collect these just have a different feeling about these guitars, to where they want them to be perfect. Now I can understand that, because whenever I buy a Rickenbacker, I'm a big fan of Rickenbacker guitars. And if I ever were to buy a Rickenbacker, I've owned a bunch of Rickenbackers, but the ones that I own, I want them to be mint. I don't want unless it's old, right? I've never bought a vintage Rickenbacker yet. I want to. I would love to buy like a 60s Rickenbacker. I have one that's an 80s. It's that black one right here, but it's in immaculate condition. I like those guitars to be mint, but I can pick up, I don't know if you can see this SG. That SG is beat to crap, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it, and I can't get enough of it. But if this was beat to crap, I probably wouldn't even blink at it. I probably wouldn't even think twice about it. So I call up the guy, and I'm like, listen, I'm still in Chattanooga. If you're still here, come back. We can trade guitars back right now. Not a problem. I won't be mad. No hard feelings. He doesn't get back to me. So I drive 2.5 hours home. That's when he sends me pictures of these tiny little dents. Now, not for nothing, there are some swirl marks on the back of this. And he was complaining about swirl marks on the back of the one I gave him. So you play it. The finishes are thin on these things. They're going to get swirl marks. There was no worming on the guitar I gave him. There was none of that. It was typical playwear. I brought it out of the house 2 or 3 times to rehearsals. But he sends me some pictures, and I'm like, listen, if you're really unhappy, I don't want you to be unhappy. I will pay shipping for this guitar to go back to you in Atlanta. You pay shipping to send that guitar back to me in Nashville, and like I said, no hard feelings, and we'll just move on. He didn't want to do that. He asked me for $50 for gas. So I gave him $50 for gas, and we called it a day. and he's happy. Okay, I guess that's all it takes. But I got this guitar home, and I plugged it in, and I wasn't sold on it until I plugged it into my rig, and then it really came alive. So let me talk to you a little bit about this guitar. So take a look at this thing. I don't know what color it is. It comes out different in pictures and on video, because I took a picture of this and I posted it on my Instagram page, and it looks gray in the middle, gray and black in the middle, and it looks really blue on the outside. And I think it's giving that same effect on screen. But in person, this has more of like that whale blue or that denim blue that PRS is really known for. And I know the blue is going to fade over time, which is cool because I like that denim color, or that gray and black color, that charcoal color. But this is a core model, PRS. It was sold for $38.50. I checked out, they don't sell this guitar anymore. You can't get this guitar anymore, so that's pretty cool too. But I looked it up on the last Sweetwater price that they had listed, and that's one thing I really like about Sweetwater, is that they will keep up old listings for things like this, so that people know the specs. They can go check specs of guitars out that aren't made anymore but were sold on the site. So this guitar was sold at Sweetwater for $38.50. It came in two different configurations. It either had a full mahogany body with mahogany top. It was probably just one-piece mahogany or two-piece mahogany. Or it came with a mahogany body with a maple cap, which is what this is. Okay, and this is obviously a flamed maple cap, and it's a 10 top, which is designated by the 10. You can't see it, but it's up there in that pointy horn. Okay. Now you might be saying to yourself, oh, that's a fake because it's not handwritten on the back. Okay, the serial numbers are typically handwritten on the back of headstocks on PRSs. This particular model has a rosewood neck that does not have a gloss finish on it. Okay, because it doesn't have a gloss finish on it, if they were to handwrite the serial numbers on top, they would smudge away. So for all rosewood neck PRSs, they stamp them just like they would stamp a Gibson. Okay, that was the first thing I looked at. Okay, when I was looking at pictures of this, and they showed the back of the headstock, and I saw the numbers weren't pressed in, I immediately went to PRS message boards and Googled it, and that's what I found out. So I was happy with that. So like I said, the core model, it was $38.50. It was not a cheap guitar by any means. It's got a 25-inch scale, as I think all PRSs do have a 25-inch scale instead of your 24 3/4-inch scale that Gibson has, and I think Fender has a shorter scale than that. It's 22 fret. So basically, to me, this is a custom 22 with different pickups, because that's where the 408 comes from. The 408 designation comes from the pickups. You have 4 coils, and you can coil tap each one of those with these little switches down here, and that gives you a combination of 8 sounds, right, or 8 different tones. So you can have the 3-way switch on the bridge and have the bridge on full humbucker, or you can have the bridge on single coil. One really cool thing about this guitar as well is when you switch it to single coil from humbucker, it boosts the volume because there are extra winds on the top coil here. So when you split it, it activates another 1,500 winds on this coil, which boosts the volume up, so you never get a decrease in volume from when you go to humbucker to single coil. Anyone who has a Les Paul that has a coil tap on it or something like that, whenever you switch from humbucker to single coil, you get a little drop in volume. Here, you don't get a drop in volume, which takes a lot of getting used to because you're expecting it. You're hitting that switch and you're expecting a drop in volume, and it doesn't come. But the tone is there. The single coil tone is there. So that's 2 different tones, right? Humbucker, single coil. You can do the same thing on the neck with this other switch. Okay, so you can go full humbucker or coil tap it. And notice this top humbucker is almost like a mini humbucker. Okay, it's a lot thinner than the neck pickup, the bridge pickup. Okay, so that's 4 tones. You can also put it in the middle, which activates both pickups, and you can have them both in humbucker mode, or you can have them both in single coil mode, or you can have one in humbucker, one in single coil, or you can switch those and have the other in humbucker and the other in single coil. Okay, and that's going to give you all 8 of your tones, hence 4 coils, 08, 8 tones. Now this is that when I learned what this was, it made it seem to me like its guitar is going to be really versatile, right? It's going to be like one of those guitars. You only need one guitar at your gig, right? If you want to have, you know, really heavy, crunchy humbucker distortion, but you also want to play something that has that Strat sound, that thinner Stratty sound, you can have both of those in one guitar when you bring it to the gig, which was really pretty cool. When I plugged it in, when I got home and I plugged it in, I plugged it into my multi-effects Zoom pedal from 2010, and I was a little underwhelmed. But once I plugged it into my Orange amp and my Marshall amp, and I was able to crank the tubes and really get the tubes running, I really enjoyed playing this guitar, and it sounded as good as any other PRS that I have ever played. Like I said, we got our 3-way switch. We have nickel hardware that also has some gold accents, which I think is pretty cool. So the tailpiece here is nickel, but it has gold accents in the saddles and also in the posts. Same thing with the input jack. Okay, you have nickel plate with the gold nut. Okay, you have gold slugs or magnets and nickel magnets. Okay, which is really cool. It has a really cool look to it and really stylish. One great thing about this guitar is look at that fretboard. Look at that beautiful rosewood fretboard. It's got so much movement in it. And I got to give it to the guy who owned it. He took really good care of this guitar. You can tell that this fretboard's been oiled up. It looks beautiful. I never oil up my fretboards, and I really should. Leave a comment if you oil up your fretboards and how often do you do it, because I never do it. I got to get myself some linseed oil for that. It's got phase 3 locking tuners. And that's one thing about PRSs. Let's talk about how underrated the guitar itself is, the PRS guitar itself is. Like I said, I've never played one that I have been disappointed in. I've never played one that had a bad setup. I've never played one that had rough frets. I've never played one that the pickups didn't sound great. I never played one that was too heavy. Okay, I've had all those issues with Gibson Les Pauls. I've had all those issues with Gibson Firebirds. I've had all those issues with Fender Stratocasters. I haven't really had that many issues with Tellys, but I've had Tellys that didn't wow me. Not that I didn't like necessarily, but they just didn't wow me. But every single PRS that I've played, and I've only played really good ones. I haven't played the S2s. I haven't played any of the SEs or CEs models. I've only had core model guitars. And every single one of them was top notch. Now you might be saying to yourself that you've played poor ones, or you've encountered bad PRSs, and I'm sure it's out there. Like I said, I've only I probably played less than 10, right? I've owned a Mira, I've owned a Tremonti, I've owned this one, I've owned another Whale Blue Custom 24. I think that's pretty much as many as I've owned. I've played a couple of others from other people. And like I said, they've all been core models and they've all been fantastic guitars. And I only will play the ones with the bird inlays. If you're gonna get a PRS and only have dot inlays, you're doing it wrong. You gotta go all out. That's what makes it a PRS, in my opinion. It's gorgeous. And these stay in tune so well. The way that the tuners are positioned on the headstock make these strings go straight up to the tuners really keeps this guitar in tune really, really well. And that's one thing that, you know, I've always had issues with Gibsons and Tellys and Strats and Firebirds all the time, keeping those things in tune while you're playing, you know, a 30 set list 30 song set list, okay, at a bar or something like that, and you're trying to keep that thing in tune while you're jumping around and doing whatever. But so, tell me what you think. Tell me what you think of the guitar. Tell me if you think if I got a good trade or not. Now, in my head, I might have given a little bit too much. I don't know. The Ted McCarty model is no longer made, and everybody that knows that guitar raves about that guitar and says it's one of the best guitars that PRS ever made. Why they don't make it anymore, I'm not sure. I'm sure there's a model that replaced it. Like I said, I'm not a PRS expert. This model, I can almost guarantee that people are going to say this is not one of the better models of PRS that are out there. It sounds great. Does it sound like the Ted McCarty that I gave up? No. But I have an R9 now that does. I have a R7 that does. I have a Murphy Lab SG that does. I got lots of guitars that do what that PRS did. Okay, I don't have a lot of guitars that do what this does, and this does a lot. Okay, it's versatile. I don't know if this is ever going to be a guitar that's going to be my number one to bring out if I ever play out again. This might be a guitar that I drop tune to E flat and use it as my E flat guitar, because it is a stop tail. There's no whammy bar on this, which is another thing I really like. And the volume control, the pot is very, very fluid. Okay, it doesn't have a big jump or anything like that. It really decreases the volume at a nice even tone. And why is that? I don't know why. I don't know why this would never be a number one guitar. Is it a look thing? Right? It's cool. It's flashy. It's pretty flashy. But I like old stuff. I like tradition. I like Les Pauls, and maybe that's why PRS kind of plays second fiddle to those guitars. But they shouldn't. That's the thing. That really is the thing. If I had that Tremonti that I used to own back in the day, that was my number one guitar. That was my number one guitar when I bought it to after when I sold it. But that was always my number one, and I had my Firebird Studio, my red Firebird Studio, which was my my backup or my detuned guitar. But I'm glad I have this in the collection. It's gorgeous. I love blue PRSs. I don't think many guitars look good in blue. I would never buy a Les Paul in blue. I would never buy a Firebird in blue, even though they could look cool in Pelham blue. The only guitars I would really buy, and I would never buy a Tele in blue. The only guitars I would buy in blue are PRSs in any model, Fender Strats, Lake Placid blue or Sonic blue. I actually just picked up a Sonic blue Strat. I'm gonna have another video about that. And SGs, Pelham blue SG, which I have. I love it. Absolutely love it. I love that color on that guitar. But that's gorgeous. So thanks everybody for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments. And subscribe, hit the bell, and I really appreciate it. Stick around, and I'm gonna plug this into my Zoom pedal and give you some tones. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. If you would, please hit subscribe, hit that bell. Hope you liked the video. Please comment down below. Tell me what you think about the guitar and the trade, and I'll see you guys next time. See you later.